Welcome back to Zemer of the Week. Zhao. I'm John Hornstein here with my co-host David Rosenwein. And David, we are at our last Zemer of the Zemirot portion of our Shabbat dinner season before we have to say grace or thank you to God for giving us this delicious meal. So I guess that's dessert, but I know you're not really so much of a dessert fan, which kind of
I'm not, but John, I have to interrupt you 1 second because for the listenership out there, this doesn't mean that we're closing the podcast here. We're just finishing one segment of season 2, but we've got a lot more seasons in store, so stay tuned.
Yeah, no, fair point. I did not mean to alarm the listenership. David
No,
likes.
we only have about a dozen listeners as it is, so we can't afford to scare any of them away.
Well, the beautiful thing is that we have one of them. So we have exactly 8.5% of our listenership on air tonight. So that's very exciting. We actually have a very, very esteemed guest this evening who is going to talk to us and teach us a song about building community in Judaism and the importance. And he's someone who is certainly very well qualified to do so. So David, do you want to introduce our guest for this evening?
I would love to. I will say you did a nice job there. You could have just taken it. But yeah, John, we have...
This is your specialty, David. I don't want to step on your toes.
It's true. I appreciate that. It's what I told John. It's the one thing I bring to the podcast is the introduction.
Well, so, plus your wave, plus the hair. Your
sure,
hair.
The hair wave that the listenership can't see, but can only imagine in their memory. Anyway, we have an awesome guest tonight coming from originally a suburb of Philadelphia, or Pennsylvania rather, and now living in D.C., working for the RAC, a.k.a. the Religious Action Center. He does advocacy work for people with disabilities, does economic, social justice work. The piece I want to highlight here, though, is that he teaches 10th grade seminars for 1,600 students a year. So, and with that, I want to welcome Tyler Dratch. But I will say, Tyler, welcome, and I just want to preface with the fact that you will not get 1,600 listeners here. This is, as we mentioned, about 12, maybe 13 if John's mom listens twice.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm sure John's mom is really nice though, so I'm excited for her to listen.
She commented on my Facebook post last week, so it wasn't just mom. If you're out there listening, that comment with the little hearts in the eyes emoji, that I don't know, it improved my day significantly. So if you could do that, in future weeks, I'll trade it for the second listen.
I'll give you my grandma's email too, but she'll listen if she knows that you had me on as a guest to your podcast.
Does your grandma know how to use emojis?
Yeah, she actually has a pretty good
Let's back that up and ask if she can use Facebook.
Yeah, she is a avid Facebooker.
Oh. Wow. Okay, good. Well, we'll definitely need your grandmother's email then. Sorry, David, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, it's not a problem, and just to get us back on track here, it's good to do some self-pumping up and trying to get listeners, but we should also focus on what we're trying to do here.
That's right. So Tyler, you've had a lot of experiences with regard to our topic for today, which is sort of like building a community in Judaism, and I know that you had a song that's near and dear to your heart in sort of getting that theme across. So what was that song that you wanted to teach us for today?
Yeah, I was going to teach a song that is a Friday night Zemer, but it's also part of the Friday night liturgy, and it's also in the book of Tehillim. It's called Tov Lehodot Lashem from Psalm 92.
It was one of my favorites.
Well, that's so good to know.
Amazing. And so, what is this kind of before we kick off and dive into the teaching of the song, can you tell the listenership a little bit about what is sort of the meaning of Tov Lehodot Hashem as you understand it?
Yeah, I mean it has I guess it has two meanings. It has for me because so you didn't say this at the beginning, but I was a Bible major in undergrad at the Jewish Theological Seminary.
Oh goodness, we
So
missed this.
that's all right. But
We have a time
I
limit on
actually
these
got to
introductions,
study.
Tyler. I apologize, though.
I got to study the Book of Psalms while I was there. So when I think about this psalm, I think about that meaning. And Psalm 92 is in one of the ways that we studied it, is considered a psalm of thanksgiving, which is kind of cool that right in the middle of Friday night services before L'Charodi, we just have like this psalm that's just about being grateful for for community and for God in the way that we understand that. But also this song Tov Lo Hashem is also meaningful to me because I learned it probably my second summer at Camp Ramah in the Poconos. So I was probably in 5th or 6th grade, and it was probably one of the first Friday night Zemerot that I ever learned. And I've sung it since then until today, now in my first job out of college in a
Wow.
new city.
That's amazing. So what is that now? It's like at least a decade of Tov Lahoda Hashem, I'd say, for you.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, I have tons of questions about sort of the interrelation of those two themes. So super interested to dive into that. But David always gets on me for jumping the gun, proverbially speaking. Would love to hear you sort of teach the listenership this song. We're super pumped for that, and then we can dive in and chat about it a bit.
That sounds great. Tov lehodot Lashem. Tov lehodot Lashem. Ulezamer leshimcha elyon. Tov lehodot Lashem. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ולהגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות ואמונתך בלילות טוב טוב להודות להשם.
Wow.
That was great. Really nice.
So a quick. Sorry, David. Didn't mean to cut you off there, but
no, please.
A quick mechanical question for the listenership. So a couple actually. So first of all, Tyler, it's a short song. Is that the whole thing? And if so, is it acceptable to repeat it when it's sung in groups?
I think it's acceptable to repeat it. I've definitely heard people repeat the first part. So it's kind of, as you heard, it was in two parts.
Yep.
And you can kind of repeat the first part twice and then the second part twice. And then beyond that, I have an opinion on this that these songs should be sung a lot. You should keep doing them. You should get lost in them. And I even heard one of my favorite teachers about Zemer, his name is Joey Weisenberg. You should have him on the podcast. But he says that you should sing a Zemer one more time beyond it feels comfortable. And I definitely agree with that. You should get lost in it until you should get to the point where you're done and then sing it one more time.
Interesting. What's the logic behind the once more? Just to get lost in it for that?
You should be at the point, right, that you should be fully immersed in it. You shouldn't have a script of how many times you're gonna sing a Zemer. It's about the whole community feeling a part of the experience. It's not that we said, okay, we're gonna sing it 4 times and then be finished.
Okay.
I think it's one of the reasons why this happens to be one of my favorite Zemers is because there's a lot of I guess community interaction. So one of the things that John was actually texting me while you were singing was, I'm very tempted to jump in with some 999s, right? You kind of like,
right.
you get lost and like everyone's participating. There are different harmonies going on. It kind of makes for a very communal song.
Yep. And that was totally that was like my next question is like sort of, if there were any like customs that you had on when you're singing it with people, if like you get into like the nine and eyes, because I know when David and I did it at school, we had, when people would sing it, we would go Tov lehodot Lashem, I. So I don't know if you had any of
Yeah,
those.
definitely. Definitely. I like that, and it's definitely a pretty easy song to harmonize. I think a third up, and for people to just kind of fit themselves in wherever they feel like they want to be in it, and for some, definitely some light, like keep someone keeping the beat on the table. There's like a lot of, I think I agree with you guys. There's a lot of places for it to be participatory, which is makes it the perfect Zemer because it has to be something that's easy enough for everyone to be a part of and for everyone to feel like they can have a part in it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so let's dive into that community aspect a little bit more. And so, you talked about sort of so first of all, you talked about these two different ideas, right? The one idea, which is the song is really about sort of thanking God, and then the other idea is that you learned this in the context of, Camp Ramah and building a community. So how do you sort of reconcile those two themes when you're thinking about like all that Tov Lahodot Lashem means to you?
That's a great question. I think, I mean, what I love about it is that in the translation of the Zemer, and I think we sing a lot of Zmirot that are traditional that we like because we like the music, but I think in this one the message really fits with the mood of what we're trying to say. It's good to give thanks to God and to sing praises, and that's like I think that's what your whole podcast is about. That in through Zmirot, through singing, we can actually have a religious experience, which is really powerful, and that's what this has always been to me. That we can come together through singing, but also through other parts of religion. That when we come together as people to do social justice or to pray or to learn, that when we do these activities in community, we actually build something that's really powerful, and that is what it means to be a part of Jewish community. So I love that the meaning of this song actually represents a lot of what a lot of us try to do when we want to build religious space and communal space.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, and there has to be, or at least not there has to be, but it's certainly elevated when there's depth to what you're singing, when you're singing in order to like bridge a community. Um, was curious to hear, because I know that you first learned this at Camp Ramah, but I know that you've had a number of sort of religious experiences throughout your life, and I was curious as how Tov Lahodot Lashem has traveled with you and has been important to you throughout your life and sort of throughout your religious development.
Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, I think that that message of finding community is something that transcends all denominations and all people that are trying to figure out how to live, who are kind of seeking out a spiritual or religious life. So I grew up in conservative movement. I work for the Union for Reform Judaism now, and I have family who are modern Orthodox. And while they all have really great deep-seated views on observance and the nature of God and views about Israel, in the end, everyone's trying to find a community of people to pray with and to sing with and to celebrate with. So I
Totally.
think that message has, wherever I find myself, that message is kind of the thing that holds through all those spaces. And for me, as I try to figure out what kind of community I want to be a part of and the kind of communities that I want to build, I know that if we keep that at the center, that a great Jewish community is where people look out for each other and find ways to contribute together and to sing together, that will be powerful. That will be something that will be lasting, which is exciting.
You taking notes, Dave? This is why we do what we do, building community through Zmira, through song.
This is like pure gold. No, yeah, Tyler, thank you so much for not only kind of re-emphasizing that point about community and how song can do that for people and for communities, but also just talking through your journey with us. Hearing about where you learned the song from to kind of where you are now in your Jewish journey. It was really interesting for us to hear. So thank you for that. For for next week's episode, looking ahead a little bit, as John mentioned when we kicked off the podcast, we're going to be shifting gears a little bit, moving away from the Friday night Shabbat Zmirot, looking ahead to when that dessert hits the table, the tea and coffee are being offered. We start to gear up for benching or grace or birkat hamazon, whatever language you want to say thanks.
And David,
And
this was the part of the meal when I was growing up that I dreaded the most because I can remember sitting at my grandparents' house for Shabbat dinner and thinking like, "Oh no, we're about to bench. I better like get in all of my brisket like and challah now because my grandpa's gonna, you know, like he was a humble guy, of course, but like, it was just known that you didn't eat after grace, and so this was a tense time in the Bernstein household. I would really need to get in my last licks.
last licks, interesting. So I actually thought you were going to take it a different direction. Usually, when you say dessert at grandparents' house, I thought you were going to say they were, going to take out some like poppy seed bread or something like that for, poppy seed babka or something.
Yeah, but you know me, I'm all about the hard stuff. And when I say hard stuff, I mean the meat. And
I'm glad you clarified that for the listenership because we don't know what aged listenership ranges from.
very true. And when I say meat, I'm talking about my grandmother's meatloaf.
I do hear that your grandmother makes a mean meatloaf.
That's true. Anyway,
Anyway,
sorry to
back,
interrupt.
no, please. Anytime you interrupt is a wonderful time for the Zemer of the Week podcast. So, but going back to what we're doing next week, we're going to be kicking off benching grace, and the way that it's customary to do in many households at many Shabbat dinners is to actually kick off benching with a psalm, with a piece of Tehillim called Shir Hamalot. There are many tunes that we can do to Shir Hamalot, which is going to be exciting and one of the reasons why we're doing it here on Zemer of the Week. But one of the questions that we have is, why do we start with this psalm? Why do we start with Shir Hamalot, and specifically this Shir Hamalot? So we're going to hopefully bring on another interesting guest to help uncover the answer to that question, teach us a version of Shir Hamalot, and just continue plowing through season 2 of Zao.
Well, that sounds really exciting to me, and I'm particularly excited because now we are officially out of the Zemirot range into the Psalm range, and therefore our Zemer historian is sort of out of scope at this point, and we're going to need to find new experts, which is kind of exciting because he hasn't appeared.
I was going to say, I don't know if out of scope is the right word. I'm not sure there is a Zemer historian. As a famous person once questioned who is St. Thomas, the question here will be, who is the Zemer historian?
Well, you'll have to listen to future weeks to find out, but I'm certainly excited, David, to learn why we start with Shir Hamalot. So thanks for posing that question.
Great. Well, stay tuned next week, John, and we'll find out together.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been a lovely to have you with us. And Tyler, thanks again for joining us.
Not a problem. This was great, and if you do a Zemer of the Week listenership Shabbat dinner, I'll make sure I'm there.
Excellent. Have a great week, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
Bye-bye.